Hello and welcome. We've made it 1/5 of the way to our 50 state, or I guess I should say my 50 state ZenQuiltz journey goal for 2025. So whoop whoop, let's celebrate for just a moment. It has been such a fun journey, and this week we'll be creating our 10th state quilt for Florida. So go ahead and offer yourself gratitude and appreciation for allowing yourself this creative time. And thank you once again for joining me on this awesome adventure. Yeah, whether it be for just 1 week or all 50, I appreciate you. Yeah. So here's a visual of all of the tools for Florida. Um, Based off of the tool list that you just saw in the beginning of this video. So I'm going to go ahead and push this all off to the side. And I'm just going to be keeping my pencil and ruler and tile to get started. And as always, we are going to start by creating that 3/16 of an inch border all the way around. So just laying a little hash mark at 3/16 on each side that we're going to inevitably be connecting to create our quilt block border or edge to that block, giving us a nice clean edge and a beautiful blank space on the inside to explore some tangles that are meaningful or that I'm trying to relate to and make meaningful for Florida. That's one of the fun, time-consuming, but fun parts of this project is trying to find elements of tangles that can fit into the overall expression of what that state represents. So we're going to go ahead and lay our ruler right along that bottom border line, and we're going to lay a hash mark at 13/16 and 2 3/16. So 13/16 and 2 3/16. And we're going to do that on every side. And we're only measuring from borderline to borderline. We're not measuring all across the tile. So 13/16 and 2 3/16 from within our border's edge. So now that we have our hash marks on each border, we're going to connect the hash marks across side to side. So laying that ruler down, connecting those hash marks side to side, getting 2 triangles or one big X connecting one side. And then we're going to do it for the other side. And hopefully these lines will go right through the center of the X we've already created. So here's what we have so far, right? We have these inverted triangles connecting in that center point And now we're going to connect across the corner, side to side. So hash mark to hash mark right across that corner to connect those outer sections. So now we visually have an octagon, yeah? So these are already connected by our border, right? We don't need to outline them because we know that they're there, and we're going to be taking our kneaded eraser and blending those off inevitably. But now that we have this octagon, we're going to go right to that center and create a little bit of an orb. So think dime size orb right around the center-ish of that octagon. Okay. Does not have to be perfect. Offer yourself grace. However, that orb lays is perfect. And now that we have that orb laid, we're going to go ahead and offer maybe, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch of an aura around that center. All right, so we have a center orb with an aura around it, with a or no, not a hexagon, with an octagon throughout our whole tile. Yeah. Now we're going to aura the edges or that outside edge. So I'm just going to start a line, um, maybe 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to go all the way around. Notice I am not measuring. I'm going all the way around this tile, continuing where I left off and allowing my aura to be perfect just the way it is. If you want to go ahead and measure, again, yeah, I'm at about 1/4 of an inch. So each one of these auras is a new strip of fabric that we're tacking on to the bottom of these triangles. Yeah. All right. Once we have that outside aura, we are all strung up, and we can go ahead and take our kneaded eraser, kind of tap the harshness of this string out. Of course, we're not erasing it. We need to see those sections. That's why we created them, but just toning them back ever so slightly so that they don't interfere with our overall vision, but giving us the guideline that we need. All right. So now that we're all strung up, we're going to go right to our color. And it's Florida, so we have some bright colors happening here. We have this beautiful blue that's been a pretty consistent color throughout our tiles. Orange and yellow, this yellow has been seen before, as has this lime green, but usually we've been toning them down. We're going to take those pretty much right as they are. All right, so I'm going to start with that lime green, that 126 that I've chosen, and I'm going to make sure that my blender is clean. And that lime green, I'm going right to that center, not to the aura, just that open orb, that center that we've created. And Florida is known for its citrus. So we're going to offer some citrus right to the center of this quilt block. And we're going to make it some key lime, because when my husband and I go to Florida, he has a mission of trying every single key lime pie on the menu, and he's determined to find the best key lime pie in all of Florida. So this center is our key lime. And notice that aura, I'm going direct with my marker right to that center, adding that ink all the way around, not blending it, but rather just taking that beautiful lime green all the way around the edge. All right, we'll let that sit for the moment. And we're going to go to this 905, this kind of real bright red orange, or maybe orange red. I guess there's more orange than red, so it's orange red. Cleaning off that blender, I'm going to take that orange red and pick a triangle, any triangle. I'm going to go into that space and add my ink with my blender, allowing once again to have those variations of color blending throughout that whole space, allowing the darks and the lights to all have a voice, not trying to get rid of those light sections, but rather allow them to stay. Those are going to offer some dimension into our tangles as we begin going through this process. So once we've picked one section, any section, we're going to skip a triangle and go to another section. So we've already mentioned that Florida is known for its citrus, everything from oranges and grapefruits to lemons and limes, right? So notice that this quilt block has a citrusy feel to it, right? These sections all the way around are very citrus-like in their triangular pieces. Always skipping and then adding that orange to the next section. So maybe this is almost like our grapefruit section, let's say. Not caring how blotchy that ink lays. You can always go back and add more if you want to tone it down a little bit, or not tone it down because that's very difficult to do. If you want to make it pop a little bit more, the darker sections, yeah. And once we have our triangular spaces defined with our orange red, every other arid edge is going to get that color. So where we haven't added our orange is where we're adding our orange to the edge. So that piece of material along the open space that we haven't touched yet is where we're adding that orange border. And I like to use the blender again, just so I have a bit of control as to how much intensity of color I'm laying. If you are more comfortable just digging in and going right to your tile with color, by all means, take that marker and head on in. Um, this is all about you creating your state quilts as you see them, right? Again, I have two different resources for state quilt inspiration, both the Cobble Hill Puzzle and the Workbasket workbook for U.S. quilt blocks. And I'm sure if I have two, there's more. So you can be inspired to create your own quilt block. All right, so I'm going to go to that yellow. I created a palette onto my acetate, and now I'm going to go directly into all of the open triangles that haven't had any color yet. Again, allowing that color to lay however it comes off that blender, kind of washing out to almost nothingness as the blender relieves itself of all of that ink, right? Always go in and fill that blender back up so that you get those real pronounced shades in the mix. But I do love how you can get that color wash with your marker, no different than if you were using your watercolor paints, yeah? So maybe this is our lemon citrus. Lots of beautiful color happening on this tile already. And again, we're going to do that same exact thing. So where there's orange above, we're going to add yellow into that edging. Florida is the sunshine state. So lots of bright colors. That's beautiful yellow for that sunshine. Mm. So now I'm going to go direct with this 4-5-1 into those open triangles that remain. So instead of blending this out, I'm going to allow this lighter blue to kind of have more of a saturated look to kind of balance with the brightness of what we've already blended into this quilt block. And as I color with this marker direct, I'm offering in a circular motion that ink to the tile, trying to avoid those back and forth straight lines, but offering more of the texture that I got through the blender direct with the marker. So into the corners of this tile, I'm taking that orange, again, going direct on my tile's edge, giving those borders a big, beautiful voice that I'm envisioning coming together so beautifully in the end. And then I'm gonna go direct with that yellow on those large spaces in between. So just offering that bright yellow. It's almost a golden yellow into those large rectangular pieces of material or fabric along this block's edge. And then when you're done inking those edges, we're just going to pick up that tile and once again use our marker on the tile's edge to get rid of that deckled white from showing in our overall piece. Yeah, we don't want that white to have a voice as our tiles come together. Okay. So now we're going to go to our tangles, and I'm going to be tangling in my light gray. So the first thing that we're going to do is start on the inside of that center orb. And we're going to offer a variation of the tangle citrus. And we're almost going to do it in Zeppel style. So citrus has these kind of rounded triangular shapes. So we're going to add those triangular shapes into those sections that by default we've created going side to side. So these rounded triangles or these enzeppel shapes where we're redefining right over the line and bouncing around the corners, not making those corners sharp, but rather bouncing around that corner and softening those edges. Yeah. And then we're going to ink in that center and all the interstices around the outside of what we're going to call our rind. So that aura space that we've put all the way around the center of our tile, that's where we're just going to ink around that, filling in all of those interstices from where we've rounded around each one of those key lime slices. And then I'm just going to go through and add tiny little auras or lines all the way around from the inside to the outside of that rind. Just giving that a bit more of a voice than just the marker color. So there's our citrus and Zeppel style. Lemons, oranges, key limes. Fun. And we've already talked that this is one big slice of citrus right here, our little duo grapefruit lemon happening. So in our yellow sections, we're going to add the tingle sunshine for the Sunshine State. So in the yellow sections, we're going to draw a go behind orb. And on that go behind orb, we're going to lay tiny orbs or a row of perfs right along the top of that orb. And then from the row of perfs to the divider line between our pieces of material, because we're only working on the yellow right now, we're going to draw a rice shape that goes from our perf line to the edge of our material. And then most likely having to use our go behind, we're going to add another rice shape that goes behind or is cut off from the way our material was cut to create that patch. And now we're going to aura each one of those rice shapes. And again, being mindful where our material is cut. So most likely you will not be able to aura around the tip of your center rice shape, right? Because we've gone all the way up to the top with our rice shape. Once we aura those rice shapes, we're going to continue to aura all the way around into that space until we can't go anymore. And we're going to do that for the whole piece of fabric. So each rice shape is going to be auraed until you run out of fabric. So there is sunshine. Let's do that again. We're going to start with a kind of go behind orb that rests right on that citrus, adding a row of perfs or orbs all the way around that center orb. From that row of perfs, we're going to do a large rice shape right up to the top of our fabric. We're going to do one off to the side, to the right, and off to the side on the left. And then we're going to aura. Once we have those individual rice shapes auraed, we're going to aura the whole rest of the fabric into this space. So just auraing until we run out of that beautiful yellow material. Taking your time, being deliberate and intentional on those strokes. And you're going to do that 2 more times. Finding that magic in the repetition. Checking in on those shoulders, yeah. Pull them down away from your ears. Relax. Checking in on that breath. Checking in on that heartbeat. Has it changed from where you started? So there is our sunshine for the Sunshine State. In the pink sections, we're going to offer IASWA. I don't know if you really should be able to pronounce it, but it is an acronym for It's a Small World After All, which takes us to Disney World in Florida. So here we go. It starts with an orb. And from that orb, we're going to add a petal, turning our tile, adding another petal, turning our tile, adding another petal, and another petal. Once we have this kind of floral expression happening, we're going to come up in the valleys and add maybe like a little bit of a teardrop. So I'm going to add a line, and on that line, I'm going to give that line a head. So I'm adding a line, and then from the tip of that head, tip of that line, I'm just going to add an extension or a rounded little head to that line. And that's going to happen in each one of the valleys of those petals. It's a small world after all. Oh, how true it is. So now that I have the base or the structure of It's a Small World After All, IASWAA, I'm going to go ahead and just enhance it so it has a completely different voice. So inside of each petal, I'm going to just flick a line to the left, wiggle, wiggle, wiggle in the center, and flick a line to the right. So in essence, I'm just adding some pinching details or some more life into this floral expression. And then in the background of this material, I'm just going to go ahead and offer some orbs randomly placed. No method to the madness, not giving it any thought, dropping my pen and adding an orb. At some points, those orbs are going to fall off the material, right? Because our fabric has to be cut. So not everything can be so perfectly placed that it doesn't get cut. So there we have it. It's a small world after all in our Florida citrus expression. So let's do that again. I'm going to place an orb into that citrus slice. I'm going to add a petal, turn my tile, add a petal, continuing to turn my tile, adding another petal until I have this floral vision of 4 petals coming together. Between the pair of petals in that valley, I'm going to draw a line and add a head to the top of that line. And I redefine that line back into the center as well, just to give it a bit more of a voice than a single stroke. And then once I have that base, that's where I'm going to go into each petal and just give it some love. Adding those orbs randomly into that space. No thought. Allowing some of them to be cut off from the full expression in this fabric. We have 2 more to do. Take your time. Enjoy the process. Don't forget to breathe. So that's our "it's a small world after all" expression. But we still have these edges or these rinds to these citrus expressions that haven't been touched yet. So this yellow material is our sunshine material. Our pinky material is our "it's a small world" material. So we're going to mimic that in a way that if we cut this material, we would still have visions, something like this onto our edge, yeah? So I'm going to focus on the auras of our sunshine material. And in the center-ish, I'm going to add an arch. And from that arch, I'm going to aura backwards the whole length of that piece of material. And then if I'm auraing left, and this is my piece of material that I'm cutting, I'm going to have a little bit of a space. I'm going to arch right and continue to fill that piece of material with auras off to the right. So each yellow, again, I'm going to call it a rind, is going to get these arid sections of our cut sunshine material. Noticing as you're laying these tangles, how the tangles change their depth and expression based on how you blended that ink into the space. So those lighter, more transparent spaces or blotches are the highlights to these tangles, and where we've made a bit more of a saturated blotch, that's the depth of how these tangles are coming into play. So cool that we had no idea, right, how our tangles were going to lay into these spaces, but it doesn't even matter because however they lay, their expression is perfect within the parameters that we gave it. It always just all works out. Okay. So there's our sunshine material that's been cut. And for our It's a Small World material, I'm just going to go ahead and randomly place orbs. Just adding orbs into that material, trying not to form a pattern of sorts, but it's okay if you do. Random orbs. Cut pieces of fabric from that overall vision of it's a small world after all. And you can pick any element, right? You can do the whole tingle and just use your go behind. What would you see if, right? Okay. So we're all tangled up for our Florida state. And we have some stitching to do. So I'm going to grab that dark gray, and around each and every piece, I'm going to offer slow staccato lines, mimicking that thread going in and out of our layers of material. Sewing on either side of our string lines. Being deliberate and intentional with each dash of that pen, trying to avoid those quick motions that give us those pen tails, because you wouldn't find pen tails or thread tails on a quilt, right? Everything is crisp and clean as that thread moves in and out, up and down through the layers of batting and material. So just take your time, enjoy the process. Don't rush. remembering to breathe, dropping those shoulders, and enjoy the process. As you're going through this process and you're almost done, change that perspective and see the power that the stitching has over the overall vision of what we're trying to accomplish with these quilt blocks. Where you haven't been yet in your stitching, do you notice that it doesn't have quite the voice that the patches where the stitching is complete has, right? This stitching, as minor of a detail as it is what makes this whole vision come to life. It's what makes it work. Otherwise, it's just a strung up tile with color and tangles. But having the tangles that find meaning in what the state kind of represents or some kind of fact about the state, we can look at each tile and know which quilt block it is and what facts we put into it just by the tiles we used. It's so fun to see this project coming together. And now that there's 10 states done, to be able to lay those 10 states out together and visualize what 40 more is going to look like. Ah, so cool. You've been along with me for this whole journey. And you like what you've been doing, share, like, comment, let other people know that this is out there for them too. And they might like to join us on this adventure. Yeah. The more we like and comment, the more activity or opportunity others have to find it. Yeah. I. Just know that if you are on this journey at all, again, even for just 1 week, I truly appreciate you joining along in my little adventure or goal for 2025. 50 miniature state quilt blocks for a finished quilt before the end. I appreciate you. All right, so we're all stitched up. We need to give this block some loving and detail, yeah? So again, as with usual, we are not going to focus on individual tangles, but rather each individual patch. So I'm going to start with my yellow. I've chosen that 917, and I'm going to go right to that edge once again, focusing on that stitch line, that pucker, that indent where the needle goes in and out, and just offer that depth around the edge so that that raised section by default of all of those layers coming together, that raised center kind of poofs and shows that automatic highlight. Circular motion right against that stitching again allows that depth. And if you do a straight line of coloring, always see that straight line of coloring, whereas if you use that circular motion, kind of dissipates a bit more, kind of softens out as you go back and forth. So pretty, offering that beautiful additional pop of yellow with the color choice that we've used in that section. I'm going to go to my green, that 1055, and right along that edge. And this time I'm coming in a piece ways into the center. So my circle, my rounding is a bit bigger so that I can incorporate that center as well, keeping just the center of that citrus highlighted and bright. And then I'm moving to that orangey red, that 926, and again, this pencil could get away from you rather quickly. So I'm starting ever so softly under that pressure. So really light pressure to this mix. Again, circular motion. I don't want that shadow to take over my whole vision. I don't want to color in. I just want to keep it tight against that edge, offering that beautiful highlight right to the center. Such a bright, fun block. This block was inspired by the Cobble Hill Puzzle, not the book. So far, I think the majority of my inspiration has been pulled from the book, so it's fun when I can grab something from the puzzle. I feel like the puzzle patterns are a bit more intense, a bit more difficult to break down. All right. So I'm going to go to those blue sections now with that 1088 that I've chosen. And although we haven't laid any tangles into this space, I just didn't want to make the block too busy. So just by offering that beautiful, again, blue sky of Florida to offset that sunshine, that citrus, I think it has enough of a voice that we don't really need to add any tingles into that space. We can just let that outer space kind of breathe and rest. So there's Florida. Offer yourself gratitude and appreciation for allowing yourself this creative time. Find your top and offer your signature, your chop, whatever you use to take ownership of that masterpiece. Yeah, I appreciate you. Until next time, thank you.